Insidious, the Red Door tells us that the Lambert family will have to travel further than they ever have before to finally close this chapter for good. Now, as the movie wrapped, though, all I could think was, we ain't really traveled further than we ever have. We pretty much traveled where we traveled before. Like, this ain't further. We've been here. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be giving you a spoiler-filled review of Insidious, the Red Door, the 5th installment of the horror franchise. Now, Insidious, the Red Door tells us that the Lambert family will have to travel further than they ever have before to finally close this chapter for good. Now, as the movie wrapped, though, all I could think was, we ain't really traveled further than we ever have. We pretty much traveled where we traveled before. Like, this ain't further. We've been here. But I actually enjoyed the movie overall. But I just could not help but think that, I'm like, we ain't really traveled further. We pretty much just rehashed everything. And if you're familiar with this franchise and you've seen the previous movies, that could be a gripe you might have with the Red Door. It's pretty much a rehashing of events that the audience is already aware of. So if you're not familiar and you're just like watching the sequel, we have the father, Josh. He is the father of this Lambert family, and his son starts to get into this coma. Weird things start happening at home that his wife is noticing. And we discover that their son, Dalton, is able to astral project. So while he is sleeping, he is able to travel to another dimension, which is full of dead who want to be living. And we discover from Josh's mother that he actually had the same occurrence happen when he was a child. And she went to someone named Elise to fix everything, and they thought that the best option was to completely erase Josh's memory. So now that he's an adult, it's happening to his kid. He don't know what's going on because they men in blacked him. Now, after this happens with his son, they end up erasing him and his son's memory. And this time we do not have Elise. She was killed. Spoiler for the previous film, sorry. But I mean, it's spoiled in this movie, and I just told you this is going to be spoiler. So we have someone else. I want to say his name was Carl, but I can't quite recall. But we have someone else come in, finish the job up, erase their memories. And all I could think when we're getting into this movie is, bro, you was a hack. Like, okay, the guy erases Josh and Dalton's memory, right? Where we find the Lambert family in this movie, we are at Josh's mother's funeral. And I gotta say, even though I enjoyed this movie, I wish we could have focused on another story and just left the Lamberts alone. Not only because we pretty much rehashed everything we already know, but also I just don't like what we find in the family. I mean, the parents have been divorced. Josh is estranged from his kids, and they made Josh very kind of pathetic in this movie and a jerk. I wasn't feeling anything about how we find this family after everything we saw them go through to end up here. And to think that this is better than telling everybody the truth was very mind-boggling to me. Parents, stop lying to your kids. And we also find Dalton with this like attitude because he's very estranged from his father. His father hasn't been a very good father to him. And that's kind of sad to see, like everything they went through together, saving each other to get to this. So basically it boils down to they thought it was best to just erase their memory. Now, I kept thinking, okay, well, the daughter was just a baby, but the little brother wasn't that much younger than Dalton. He should have memories. But how they spin it is the mom basically tells the younger brother, oh, that's just a bad dream you had. It wasn't real. It didn't happen. And I didn't like how the ex-wife and the other two kids are pretty much useless throughout the movie. The basic main premise of the story is pretty much all about Dalton and Josh and their father-son relationship and dynamic, and them individually having this confusion and mystery because they are missing an entire year of life from when Dalton was, I want to say, 10 years old. And some stuff that did not make any sense is our memory was taken. They Men in Blacked us. But I'm saying that old boy was a hack because Elise does the exact same thing to Josh when he was a kid. And he lived a happy, healthy, normal life. No problems. But when the guy erases the memory of Josh and Dalton, no, things weren't so good. You would have thought that Josh had a stroke or something. You know how if someone has a stroke, they may not be able to like communicate how they normally would. You know, like you have certain issues mentally, or maybe like speech, like you can't get words. That's how it felt. It felt like he had, I don't know, a lobotomy. He just felt completely different. He was talking about how he is in this fog. And then on the other hand, Dalton, talk about walking around like a black cloud, like just a dark, miserable cloud. That's pretty much how he walked around. There was just where you could tell something was going on with them. There was something wrong. And I just don't understand how, even if at first the mom was like, yeah, this is a good idea, let's blank the memory. Because, hey, it worked for Josh and his mom when he was a kid. But as time is passing, and my husband is going down the road he's going, and my son is miserable, and I'm lying to me. Baby, at this point, I need you to tell everybody the truth. It just didn't make any logical sense to me. And what also did not make any logical sense is the fact that we have had, this is 9 years after those events, right? We have had 9 years of not being able to travel to the further. We don't have those memories. All of a sudden, with the events of the movie, all of it starts happening and coming back for Josh and Dalton. Dalton goes away to college. And some of the moments that I didn't care for that were a little draggy for me was Dalton in college. I didn't care about some of that part of the story, him at the frat party, especially when you had the idiot Nick guy who's wearing a diaper saying this frat is the last place a man could be a man. But bruh, you're in a diaper. I don't know, all that. I was just kind of like, Now, Dalton goes away to college. And he has a roommate, Chris, a female roommate, right? Gorgeous black girl. Which then we had an odd scene where Nick said she wasn't attractive. And like, oh, maybe if we drink enough, you'll look good. And I'm like, she's gorgeous. So that was weird. But the introduction of Chris was odd because she comes into the dorm room when Dalton and Chris are already there. Not Dalton and Chris, child. When Dalton and Josh are already there. And it's like an awkward entrance. And it's like, oh, you're a girl. I thought Chris was a guy, which, yeah, I can see how you can presume just the name Chris is a guy. But I mean, I met a guy named Ashley. My little sister's named Jordan. It's a lot of people with like unisex names or girls with boy names. But also, would this be a mix-up? I mean, does this college do co-ed dorms or not? And if they don't know this student is a female. I don't know. It was just really odd that could be a mix-up. And then she's able to only stay there one night and she gets reassigned to a room with this white girl. So that girl just had a room by herself. Like they were able to just move you in one day. I don't know. That whole thing was just, we could have came up with a better story for these two characters to meet and be friends, as opposed to me getting put in a misroomed or whatever. But anyway, so Dalton is at a liberal arts college and he's here for art. He draws and stuff like that. And we have a very odd scene that made me feel uncomfortable, honestly. Dalton goes to his first day of class and he's being taught by someone who's important because the movie says she's important, but we really have no idea why she's important. She's the art teacher for some reason is a big deal, but we don't know why she a big deal. The movie just tells us that she is a big deal. So the teacher has all of us pull out a picture from our portfolio that we're proud of and we want to show. She goes over to this black kid and she pretty much disses his work like, oh, anyone can learn a technique. Anyone can even master a technique, but you don't have like talent or heart. And she tell the kid to rip up the picture. Y'all, it was so uncomfortable. It felt so weird. And then she like kicks him out of class. Like, oh, you just quit. You just don't know it yet because you don't have what it takes. Why he don't have what it takes? Because he wouldn't rip up a picture he worked hard on? I don't understand. And then, I ain't never been to college, child. Okay, I'm not college educated. But you pay to go to college. Can you just kick me out the damn class? I don't know how that worked, but that just seemed really odd. And art is Dalton's major. He's here for art. Can you kick me out my major? I don't know. It was very uncomfortable and very odd. But in this art class, this is where Dalton's memory gets jogged, right? Now, he was hypnotized in order to be able to erase his memory. Now, the art teacher don't hypnotize him. She just counts backwards. Like, that's it. That's all it took to open this door back up is for him to hear someone counting backwards. So you mean to tell me he never heard nobody counting backwards in 9 years? Like, this was just so odd. And you mean to tell me when Elise hypnotized Josh to lose his memory in his whole 30 years of life, he never heard nobody count backwards? Like, that's all it takes is for you to somebody to just count backwards and then the door is open. That really didn't make any sense. It was very just convenient. Like, the movie wanted these events to start right now, so the events just started right now. And then on the side with Josh, how this all gets jogged for him, which we had some moments where, like, after the funeral when Josh is in the car, you could kind of see entity, a presence, like behind him in the back of his window of the car. We had a lot of moments like that where you just kind of like saw something behind someone. And this didn't make any sense. Josh gets into an argument with his son because, he's feeling foggy. His mind isn't right. And his son says, well, have you tried to seek some help? And Josh is just like, nah, I'm just dealing with it. But he suddenly decides to go get an MRI. So you mean to tell me this man been feeling foggy and his mind ain't been right for 9 years. And on the 9th year, he finally decides to go get some help for this? Again, just something very convenient where the movie wants this to happen now, so it just happens now. And then also, who gets a damn MRI this fast? Like, he literally requests the MRI and then he gets the MRI like 3 hours later. Like, I'm exaggerating. It probably was the next day. But who gets the MRI that fast? And Josh gets put into this MRI machine, which is a great scene. I love the MRI scene where he's in the MRI machine, the lights turn off. This was another moment I was talking about where you like see something behind him. This was great. We actually get really good imagery, in my opinion, throughout the film. Of course, we get monsters we've seen because we know when Josh was a kid, there was a certain entity after him that came back as when he was an adult. There was a certain entity after Dalton. Of course, that still comes back. But we also get some other entities, ghosts, presence. in a scene towards the end. We're at the dorm that comes after Chris and Dalton. I just felt like the imagery looked good. I wouldn't say it was scary per se, even though the person that I was in the movies with was scared. But for me, I wouldn't say it's scary, but I liked the horror images they gave us. But while Josh is in this MRI machine, something attacks him, and he's like yelling for the doctor to let him out. The lights went out. When he finally gets let out, the doctor is like, you were asleep. Everything went fine. No lights went out. So how is this door open for Josh all of a sudden? Why, when he gets into this MRI machine, does all of a sudden he see this thing and this stuff happen? Then, since everything on the MRI is normal, the doctor tells Josh to work on some, memory activities, right? Y'all, please tell me why. Okay, so he has this, I don't know what to call it, Wheel of Fortune thing up where he has a picture of someone in his family on a paper. It's turned around where you just see the paper. You got to flip it to see the picture. Instead of taping it up on a wall, he tapes it up on the window so that we could see something out the window. And his memory was bad, child. He could remember a picture he flipped 2 seconds prior. But he ends up having an entity attack him. And I just thought this was too convenient. Why hasn't this entity attacked him these 9 years? Why was everything suddenly open now? It just kind of made no logical sense for me. But anyway, one big thing that they reveal is the fact that Josh's father abandoned him, and he's always had this anger about that. Well, when he gets attacked, it leads him to this little box in the closet of his mother's room with a name on it, pictures of his mom with this man. He discovers his dad did not abandon him. His dad was actually schizophrenic. His dad could astral project, so he probably wasn't even schizophrenic. He just, could see ghosts and stuff, but people gonna call that mental illness. But he ended up committing suicide. And again, with parents lying to their kids, why is the better lie or the better option to lie and tell my son your dad abandoned you, and then my son lived his whole life with this anger inside of him, as opposed to just saying, hey, your dad was mentally ill and he had a lot of mental health problems, and unfortunately things ended in a tragic way. And also, it's not like you would have had to explain something quote unquote paranormal that people, a mass of people don't know about, because we have a situation in the movie where we look on the internet and it's stuff on the internet about astral projection. So you literally could have explained all of this to your son. Why was the better option to lie? I still don't get that. So when this happens, it opens a floodgate for Josh, and he goes to see his ex-wife. The daughter just so happens to be at a sleepover or something, and then the younger son just isn't home at the time. Which them two characters was really, all three of those characters were pretty useless throughout the movie, and they made me not like the wife. Child, they made me not like the wife. The husband comes in here, Josh comes in here, and he's just going off oh, my dad, he lost his mind. Is this something wrong with me? Is it you really rather just abandon your husband, divorce him, let it spiral, let him live in this fog, let him have these strained relationships with his kids, as opposed to just tackling the truth. Because basically, her whole justification for the situation is, if you saw the previous movies, Josh ended up possessed and attacking his family, trying to kill them. You can literally just explain possession to your children. I know it looked like your father. I know it had your father's face and your father's voice, but it was not mentally your father. There was something controlling his body. This ain't even hard stuff to explain. It's not rocket science. But it just, I don't know. For me, the wife came off kind of cold. Like, I risked my life to save Dalton. I went through all of this. I was dedicated to my family. And you divorced me, and I'm living this sad life in this mental fog by myself with these strained relationships with my kids. Your son is miserable. And the younger son got issues because apparently she has to reiterate for him, oh, that was a bad dream. That never happened. Come on now, child. Come on now, child. So let's backtrack with Dalton. Dalton is at college. He has that situation I told you guys about in the art class where she counts and she's like telling them instructions, like pull something from a memory, you want heart and passion in your art, not just like she said, technique. And what happens is Dalton ends up drawing the red door. And at first it's just, he has like this black chalk pencil thingy, but something like claws at his hand and blood ends up on the picture. Once he gets back to his room, he like moves the blood around, like, drawing, and we get that red door. And apparently this picture isn't just symbolic, but it actually has some type of power to open that door back up. And this is when Dalton starts to astral project again. He ends up going into Chris's room, right? And Chris knows he was in her room because even though it was just his astral projection self, he plays this tune that he played for her before. That is a song his mother came up with. She has this like keyboard that's a thing in her room. And they ended up going to a frat party previously. And for some odd reason, Chris thinks it's a good idea to go rummaging through people's bedrooms and stuff. And then she randomly says, hey, stay here in this room, in Nick's room, because I'm finna go put this cream on the toilet or some mess. Some excuse to leave Dalton alone, child. And we get told that something happened to a kid at one of the frat parties. Come to find out, one of the kids that something happened to him, he died. And we end up seeing his ghost self, and he's in a bathroom throwing up. Presumably, he probably died from like alcohol poisoning, and he's yelling for Dalton to close the door, which I guess in the scene you think he's talking about the bathroom door, but no, that's not the door he's talking about. He's talking about this door, this red door that has now been opened. And back forward where we were talking about before I talked about the frat party. Jump to Chris coming into Dalton's room like, please tell me you're not a creep. Like, why are you just in my room? This is when he explains what just happened. And I found it odd. Like, I can see a child. When he was a child, I can see you just taking to this. Because you a kid. Kids believe in all kind of stuff. You might just not really understand what's going on. But for this, like, I don't know, he just went away to college. So what, 17, 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid to just take to this, don't think nothing's odd, we're just all happy, and her as well, Chris as well. Like, we just jump on board. The little information he gives her, somehow she comes back like, hey, I know what's going on with you because whatever you told me, I looked it up online and it's astral projection. We get Specs and Tucker, who worked with Elise. We see a video of them online, and we also see a video online of Elise. And the way they set it up, it kind of seemed like when she looked at the camera like she was talking to Dalton. And I thought this was crazy. She literally warning you that there are things not living that will try, they want to be living, they want your life. But he don't heed that warning. He just keep wanting to jump back to astral project. And Chris is all excited and she all down for everything. And Dalton tells her that kid, was trying to tell me to hold the door. He was trying to close the door. He was trying to say something to me. I need to do this. I need to know what he's saying. So they go back to the frat house so that he can talk to this ghost again. They go into an empty room and she just counts. and he's asleep and he's astral projecting. Again, has he never heard counting? It just doesn't make any sense that people can just count. And then that's it. He's back. As if we didn't erase his memory. And in this moment, when Chris is in here by herself, the lights cut off and one of the entities attack her and is choking her. And I was like, child, if they kill this girl, I would have been mad. Because I like Chris. But the guy, Nick, ended up coming in. And he is able to revive her after Dalton came in and was able to wake up. Once he wakes up, the entities go away. And Nick was able to, like, you know, resuscitate her, get her up. And she ended up mad at Dalton. And I'm sitting here like, baby, don't be mad at me. Like, how you suddenly mad at me? You was all excited and gung-ho and on board with everything. I know as much as you know. We ain't know you could get hurt. Now we do. I just thought it was very odd that she was just so mad at him. Like, I could see being upset. You were just attacked. But mad at him like he, like, did something to you. I don't know. I just thought that was really odd. But she's not talking to him, Dalton. But he decides, as he's drawing this picture, he keeps adding more to it, right? And he's calling his little brother to ask him questions. The story that Dalton is told is that year that he doesn't remember, he was in a coma. But he tells Chris he don't even remember being sick. He don't remember anything. It's like he just woke up and he didn't remember a whole year. So he's calling to ask his brother questions because, you know, he's having visions. He's seeing things. He's drawing his picture. And the little brother's like, why you don't just ask mom? And Dalton is just like, she'll get upset. He don't know why. He just knows she'll get upset. But he's asking his little brother these questions. And then he ends up trying to talk to Chris, who don't want to talk to him, leaves her a voicemail, and he decides to astral project. Now, I didn't think this made any sense. While this is happening, that's when Josh is at the house talking to his ex-wife about what he found out about his dad, and then she tells him the truth about their memory being taken and what really happened. And the younger brother comes in upset about the dad trying to attack them and tells them, you know, Dalton called and he's been asking these questions. Now, next thing we know, Josh is going to sleep to astral project and go get his son from the further. I didn't think that made no sense. The only thing the little brother knows is that Dalton has been having, like, seeing things and asking these questions. How do we know he's in the further? Why do we know we need to go get him from the further? That didn't make any sense at all to me. But Dalton is in the further. And he ends up getting chained. And he's stuck in the further. And he gets possessed by that monster that has been wanting to get him since he was a kid. And when the lights go out in the dorm, Chris is immediately like, Dalton. And she goes to his room and he's just sitting in there. And she starts talking to him. She brought some lights in because he has this thing where he's scared of the dark and he has a night light. So she brings in the strings of light, and he ends up attacking her. And she can see, like, he looks like a demon. And I was just like, child, if you gotta die, just please know it ain't Dalton. Like, please just know it ain't him. Something you can tell, something up with him. But the dad ends up getting to Dalton. He in the further, he unchains him. So now he's not possessed in the real world. And I'm sitting here like, black girl, go, run. Child, she stays in the room after he just attacked her, but Dalton is still out because he's still in the further, and she's sitting on the ground holding Dalton. She's like sitting on the floor. He's in front of her. She's holding him, and you see all these entities coming out and crawling like from under the bed, trying to crawl towards them. I liked this scene. I liked how it looked, and I did not know Patrick Wilson, the guy who plays Josh, He directed this. This is his directorial debut. This is the first movie he directed. I thought he did really well with the direction of this film. Like, I thought everything was shot very well. But while this is happening, this whole scene with Chris in this room with Dalton, I could not for the life of me not understand why the hell she ain't run up out of there. Like, she had some chances to get the heck up out of Dodge City, and I do not know why she didn't. But we have Josh and Dalton in the further. Dalton has his memory back because they show us the dad trying to attack them with the hammer. So when he sees his dad, he's like, you tried to kill us, da-da-da-da-da. He's acting very weird. But bro, you was just possessed. But I guess he don't know he was possessed. But the dad tries to tell him, it wasn't me, I was possessed. You were, that's just what happened to you. And I just feel like Dalton's behavior and demeanor was very odd in this scene. And then we get where we go out the red door and the dad is trying to hold the door. This was reminding me of that Game of Thrones episode, Hold the Door, with Hold Door. But the dad is trying to hold the door. Dalton again was being so weird. The dad kept asking him to help me hold the door closed so they don't get out. But Dalton was just being very odd. He wouldn't go over and help close the door. And then the dad just tells him to go. And babe, when I tell you, his son ain't even hesitate. You know how you see a scenario in a movie when one person finna sacrifice themselves, so they tell the other person, just run, just save yourself, and they hesitate, like, no, I can't leave you. Nah, baby. There was none of that for Dalton. Dalton said, all right, peace out, pops. Like, it was so ridiculous. But the dad is sitting here trying to hold the door. When we see him, like, his body at the wife house, I'm thinking the dad gonna die. It was a lot of moments in the movie where I thought the dad was gonna die. But the kid, his son, Dalton, body is with Chris. The little entities are crawling towards them, grab his legs, and the dad is holding the door. Dalton is able to wake up, and we still see the dad in front of the red door. And all of a sudden, we see this like black tar coming down, covering the door. It's Dalton in real life painting over that door, that painting he has, because the black girl is like, burn it, we need to forget it. And he gives us a line about you can't just, forget trauma. Like, there's a purpose to you remembering it. So we get this theme of like the whole thing of them forgetting. Like, no, we need to move forward with the memory, which I actually enjoyed that theme in the movie. And I wish we could have like had more than just that one line at the end. Like, I wish we could have went more into that, because that was actually a really interesting part, because everyone thought the best thing to do was to just forget. Now, one of the monsters is able to like break through the door, but the black stuff comes down. The door is closed. Now, some stuff that didn't really make sense to me. We have Carl, the guy who erased their memory at the mom's funeral. And Josh makes it a point to kind of run up to him, like, try to see who he is. He literally is nowhere else in the movie. I have no idea, like, what was the point? I could see if he came up later, maybe in the third act or somewhere, and was useful, but that served no purpose, him just popping up. And then also, at the top of the movie, when we're at the funeral, all I'm thinking about is the fact that the kid Dalton got like a rope tied around his waist. The whole movie, he wears this rope around his waist like a belt, and it was the oddest thing. But then when he's possessed, that rope is used to try and strangle the black girl. I didn't understand why. Have y'all ever seen somebody wear a rope as a belt that could like afford a belt? I don't know. I thought that was very odd. But let me see if I have anything else in my notes that I didn't cover. I enjoyed the slow build, like, scare scenes that we had in this movie. It was like something happened. What's gonna happen? I like how they did that here. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the imagery. We have a moment where as Josh is putting the picture together, first it starts with just the door. Then we get a man. We get like he's continuing to build on the photo. Then there's a scene where the hammer in the picture actually becomes like a real hammer that Dalton actually grabs out of the photo. I just liked how stuff looked in here. And the pacing wasn't spot on. Some stuff felt very useless. And also, there's no payoff at the end for the audience. I enjoyed the movie, but the story, just making this movie, this story seemed useless. Because we don't learn or discover anything in the end. Our characters learn and discover stuff that the audience came in knowing. So, again, it just felt useless. And I enjoyed Chris. The character was enjoyable, but almost didn't feel like a real person. Like, a lot of the stuff that Chris would do, it just didn't feel like anything a real person would do. I wish they would have given us a different setup for their friendship, something that would have made a lot more sense, something that would have, and I wish they would have built the relationship in a way where her going through this with him just felt more logical. It's kind of like, bro, I don't even know you. Like, it was just, I don't know. It was very odd. I like the theme, like I said, of forgetting trauma, but I wish we got more than just that one line. That didn't really make sense to me, that you would just throw that in at the very end of the movie. But I guess that's kind of, our lesson that we learned in the end. And I hated the very end of the movie. It felt very generic and on the nose. We got that little cameo from Elise when I said we saw that video. But then at the very end of the movie, when we find out that Dalton is okay, and we have Josh leaving the house, he pops into Elise out on the street, obviously her like spirit self, and she tells him like his future is bright, your family gonna be great, everybody gonna have a happy ending. Why we had her come in and say that? Like, it just felt so cheesy. I didn't really care for that. Oh, but you know what? I don't think that was the very, very end of the movie, because Josh ends up popping up at his son. Yep, that wasn't the very, very end. The very, very end of the movie was Josh popping up at Dalton's dorm room. And when he dropped him off at college, he made a comment about, oh, I didn't make the wall, because Dalton has these drawings of like his grandmother, his mother, that he puts it up on the wall. So now at the end, he had this great, amazing drawing of his dad carrying him when he was a kid, when his dad came to rescue him from the further. So that was the very, very end. So that ending was fine. I just didn't like that Elise part, but I get it. It feels like Elise is this franchise, and I did miss her presence and her character in the movie, but I didn't like that. Really, just, you're gonna be happy. Like, I don't know. It's just like, why did we do that? But I enjoyed this movie overall. I feel like it was very solid. Now, for me personally, when I see a horror movie and don't nobody die, I usually be like, oh, hell no, this sucks. But I actually enjoyed this. It was a nice story. We got some good imagery, and mainly I just really enjoyed the father-son dynamic and everything that they were going through and dealing with. And I'm glad that they didn't do it to the extreme where Dalton felt really obnoxious and you didn't really feel any sympathy for him, because I feel like that's usually what they do with teens. They make them way too angsty and obnoxious, and you just don't even like them or feel sorry for them or feel any empathy for them in any way. But I actually cared about Dalton. I felt like they did it very well. And the stuff that we got from Josh, you understood why they had that animosity going from the father and the son. Like, it made sense. He wasn't a very, nice guy. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this. I would give Insidious The Red Door a solid 5 out of 10. It was an average time at the movie theater. Let me know in the comments, how did you feel about Insidious The Red Door? And make sure you stick around and check out my playlist of my other 2023 movie reviews, and make sure you check out my horror movies playlist. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'll see you in the next one.